Good morning, everyone. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Thanks, Stacy. It's great to have everybody back together. Today we're gonna step through the tool, which I think a number of you have seen an earlier iteration of. I think we rolled it out last spring possibly to many in this group, and received some feedback and have continued to develop it since then. But what we're gonna look at today is officially version 1.0 of the Susquehanna Flood Warning and Response System. I'm gonna just provide a little background up front here, and then we're gonna turn it over to Chuck, who was the web developer for the tool, Chuck Frank of SRVC, and he's gonna walk through some exercises to try and get you some hands-on practice with using the tool, and all of this is really leading up to the exercise we're planning to have in November. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, where we actually want to put the tool to task and see how it can be utilized during an event. So with that, we'll get into it. Of course, now my slides aren't advanced. I don't know why that is. Let's see. Trying to advance my slides. There we go. Here's the agenda, which I just kind of walked through. Again, I'll provide some background. We'll do an interactive demonstration. We'll have plenty of opportunity for questions and answers. This is somewhat informal, so as we go through it, feel free to, if you have a question, feel free to ask it or hold it. We will have some time for question and answers after the demo, and then we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming exercise. So this tool is really designed to be used by you all, the group that we've gathered here today, which is community officials, emergency managers. It provides a platform to view the inundation maps we have along the Susquehanna River, and also provide impacts, which are available on the NOAA AHAPS page, but then also response actions, which we've gotten from you all through your emergency action plans, and some of the actions that were actually included in the old tool, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then the other thing that the tool does is provides an estimate of potential damages based on a stage elevation of flooding. And I would, at this point, we're not developing this for public dissemination. We may get to that point in some shape or form, as I'll go back to this probably a few times. This is version 1.0, and I, in saying that, as we work through the webinar today and the exercise in November, if you're seeing things functionality that you'd like to see the tool provide, or things that could make it more helpful, or any ideas, please feel free to bring them to the floor, because we're actually moving out on version 2 already, and we're looking to develop this beyond the area that we have now, and really over the entire Susquehanna Basin. Ultimately, we'd like to have this available. So this is, we're seeing this as a first step out the door. And really happy you're coming with us. But we do have an eye to the future and building it out, and are committed to continuing to maintain it and develop it. So don't hesitate to throw any ideas at all, or any wishes. We already have a wish list developed of things we want to do in version 2, and we can talk about that if you're interested. But anyway, primarily we're here or the tool is to provide a viewer for the inundation maps, impacts and response to various levels of inundation, and then the associated damages. The current coverage of the tool is what we've sort of been calling the Wyoming Valley, but it's really a greater area than the Wyoming Valley. It's the 100-mile stretch beginning above Wilkes-Barre and extending down below Sunbury. There are 4 National Weather Service forecast points in that area: Wilkes-Barre, Bloomsburg, Danville, and Sunbury. And each, as we'll see, each one of those forecast points, defines a reach. the study area that, you know, depending on where you're located, will determine, you know, your area of interest in the tool and the product, and Chuck will take you through how we zoom in and find your specific area of interest. Just a quick shout out to some of the partners in the Silver Jackets that are responsible for getting us to this point. You can see them on the screen there, but you know, in putting this up, I would also suggest that everybody who's here today is a partner in this project, and we really, you know, we appreciate you being here today and want to continue to work with you as we develop this further. Quickly on background of the tool, some of you may be familiar. This tool is not a new idea. This tool was originally built around 2000 through a partnership of the Army Corps and SRBC and others in the area, Luzerne County Flood Protection Authority, to essentially build a tool that would assess damages based on specific levels of inundation, you know, specific stages of inundation. There was some extensive mapping done at the time for that same 100-mile reach, and probably some of the early inundation, stage-based inundation map libraries were developed at that time. That tool was built in a GIS, or built to be displayed on a GIS platform. That became obsolete somewhere around version 9.3 of ArcGIS, and so difficult to interact with. We've taken that framework and basically moved it into an online environment, and now and hopefully are going to carry it forward and continue to build it out. And just quickly, you know, you're able to select a stage of inundation at one of those forecast points, display the map, and then identify areas that are impacted and damages with resultant damages. Quick word about flood risk management structures. These are levees, essentially. We know this reach has quite a few of them. I don't know how familiar you are with sort of the designation, the delineation we made in these structures between documented flood risk management structures and undocumented. I think the important point to know here is how the tool handles each of them. Documented flood risk structures are essentially projects, levees that are FEMA approved, accredited, built by the Corps, or others that are accredited. And when those are displayed in the tool, they're shown as protecting the area behind them until, you know, up until the point where the levee's overtopped. Undocumented flood risk structures are those levees that are either not accredited, they could have been built by the Corps and have not been maintained or not accredited. There's actually only one levee, I think, in the reach that this affects, and that's the Conneer levee in Columbia County. And the difference there is that will, and we can look at that closer when we get into it, if you choose. But the difference being there that it is inundated pretty much as soon as it basically shows that it's not there, and that damages will occur without the levee overtopping. It's not a big impact, as it's only one levee. It is in Bloomsburg, and it's only one facility. But we could look at that closer, and I'm looking at Eric as I'm saying that. So, but that's something just to be aware of. As I mentioned, and we'll see this as we get into the tool, we've identified through your help and somewhat from what was in the old tool, some response actions up and down the reach. We'll take a look at those, and would certainly appreciate you, you know, providing a back check on those to make sure that they are in fact actions. And these are things that occur. These are actions that are taken. There are levee closures, maybe some road closures in there, things that need to happen when when the river approaches a certain level. We have an exercise that will look at these, and it's both impacts and actions that we display, and so we'll look at that. And as I've talked about, we do have damage estimates in the tool. All of the damages that are displayed have been calculated previously, sort of offline, if you will, and we're really just displaying those results. But we've used the FEMA FAST tool to calculate those damages. And you'll see there's both allowance for structure and content. And all of the damages at this point are based on a 2020 tax assessment value. We reached out to all of the counties, and we're able to get as much data as we could. And it's the factors that are applied to calculate those damages are based on the structure type, the way the building materials, the height of the building, and so forth. And we'll look at that. I guess I will just put one caveat out there. We do have a disclaimer in the tool that Chuck can show you where it is when we get into it. You know, these are tax assessment values. I think you have to when you look at these numbers, you know, I think we're in the ballpark, but they are estimates, so they should be, you know, they should be evaluated as such. And certainly, as you get into it and you start looking at them, we would be interested to see or to hear your thoughts on how well the numbers are performing, or in terms of you know, the return from the tool versus what actual damages may be. I think I pretty much covered this. I think I will highlight that we did in the 100-mile reach, the only new surveying that we did for first floor elevations was in West Pittston, and the rest of the data is well, updated tax assessment values, but the rest of the structure data is based on the surveying, and it's not insignificant. It's thousands of structures that are in the tool that are relying on data that was collected around 2000. All of the structures in West Pittston were surveyed during the last summer of 2020. There is, as we get into it, and I don't want to throw too much at you, because we'll see it as we go through, I think, a little bit, but each of the yellow dots is a building centroid. When we get in and we actually see structures, and each of those dots has parcel values associated with it. One thing to note, it is possible to see a yellow dot in an inundated area and not have any damages. And the reason that would occur was that there hasn't been any, either the structure type doesn't allow for basements, or there hasn't been, or the elevation of the flood is not above the first floor. And so in those situations, the dot will be orange, and you likely won't see any damages. The other sort of complicating factor here are basements, and when you see a negative depth in the basement, essentially it's telling you how far away that depth is from the first floor. So in an example, if you had an 8-foot basement and a negative 2-foot depth, you would essentially, and I'm throwing this at you quickly, you would essentially have 6 feet of water in your basement. But understand that it's really just assuming it's an assumption, and it's not. We don't have basement depth information in all of these, and we don't have any insight as to how, you know, what the basement contains in terms of utilities, and so it's all based on assumption. A 0 depth is basically indicating that the elevation of the flood is right at the first floor level of the structure, and then positive depths, and you'll see these. You can go in and interact with each parcel if you want. You can click on it and get the individual damages. Positive depths are depths above the first floor. I've probably exhausted my time here, so I think, and it's time to turn it over to Chuck, and now the real fun begins, because Chuck's gonna he's gonna pull up the tool. He has provided some exercises, and we'll walk you through those and show you this sort of live time, and so everybody can get a good handle on the tool and what it does, and have a chance to ask questions. And so again, I'm going to stop talking, turn it over to Chuck. Thanks everybody for being here, and look forward to working with you on this moving forward. Chuck, are you good to go?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. That was a great introduction. That covered a lot of good information that I'm going to be doing that we may see in the flood tool, and I may cover a little bit of that just while we're moving through things. But that was a really helpful introduction. So at this point, can everybody see the website that I'm sharing? I just want to make sure. Okay. Great. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us for the training exercise today. My name's Chuck Frank. I'm the web application developer at SRBC. In this part of the presentation, we're going to be doing a walkthrough and a demonstration to help you understand how to use the flood tool. The approach that I want to take today, and this is to avoid having me just talk the whole way through, I want to do a little bit of a demo and orientation, but then we want to break things up and have you be able to do the exercises. So I'll talk for a little bit. I'll do a demonstration. Then we'll do an exercise. And when everyone's done with the first exercise, I'll come back through and I'll go through some parts of the flood tool and some additional detail. So our goal here is to get you all comfortable with the tool, to be able to log in and use it and understand what it does. So for this first part, I'm just going to introduce the website and just watch my screen. But this should be pretty quick, and then we'll be able to get into it and do some work with the tool. So when you come to the landing page is just a it's pretty basic. It's got an area to log in. It's got a brief overview and some contact information in case maybe you're having trouble logging in and you need to reach out to someone to get some help. That's kind of what that's intended to do, or maybe even for people that are interested in getting more information. But then we have a login. I'm going to log in here. So it's password protected, and part of our intent for doing that was just to narrow down the audience. So our audience is really not the general public at this point. Our audience is more people who are flood managers, people who have some kind of knowledge or experience in the field, and that helped us be able to make the web tool more specific. So anyway, you'll notice when I logged in, there are some new things on this page to get revealed. So across the top, we have links to the tool, flood actions, and a user guide. Over here, there's more information if you want to get into some more details. Additional information about the data sources and contact information. So the reason I'm just talking about the overview page a little bit more is just because it demonstrates our audience. So when you log in and you get in here, right now it's designed for people that understand the topic a little bit better. So I'm going to move across these pages to the top. I'm going to save the flood tool for last because that's where we're going to end up and do our work. The first page I want to talk about is flood actions page. Flood actions, these are basically just documents. They're organized by county. This is just meant to be a repository where it's easy to access documents that are used for planning or information. We can certainly expand these as we get more documents, but it's just a way for people to all have reference to the same thing rather than having to go through servers or email sharing or that kind of thing. So just a handy way of finding and locating information. I just opened one. I won't open them all, but so this is an emergency action plan for Danville, and it shows some of the things they do is inundation changes in a sequence. All right, then next I'm going to show the user guide. User guide is a really good resource. It's divided into two main parts. The first part of the user guide is really all about the methodology, data sources, background. So I would encourage everyone to look at this. And then the next part of the tool the next part of the user guide is using the website. So we have really detailed information about how to use the website. So, if you get a few weeks out from this exercise and maybe you forget how to do something, this is an excellent resource that has step by step. It's graphical with a lot of screenshots and helpful information. So we encourage everyone to look at the user guide. All right, so let's get to where we want to talk about today. This is the flood tool. This is what the screen looks like. It's a map-based web tool, and this is where we view flood inundation and calculate damages. So Ben did a good job. He explained the project area. So the initial extent of the flood tool is the project area. Wilkes-Barre, Bloomsburg, Danville, and then Sunbury are the reaches we have in the tool right now. So this is the area we'll be working in. Let me just kind of orient everyone to the map before we get into some exercises. It's all pretty standard. I assume most people in this group have worked with some map-based web applications. In the upper left, we have just basic navigation for zooming in, zooming out. You can change base maps. So these are all the Esri base maps. If anyone, has a different preference for the base map that's shown, I'm going to keep mine on imagery. It does geolocate if you're somewhere right along a reach. Where I am today, I'm well out of the reach, but that's a nice function if you're somewhere right along the project area. And then it has a home button. The home button will return you to your initial extent. That's all pretty standard kind of stuff for a web map. Moving over to the right side, we have our legend. So we have scale dependent layers. Okay, so you'll notice as we zoom in, the legend activates, and as we zoom out, the legend turns off. But I'm zooming into the Wilkes-Barre reach, and you can see some points turn on over here. If I want to turn those off, you can just toggle the visibility by clicking the I button. At the bottom of the map, you may notice the coordinates. So the coordinates just change as the mouse moves along the map. If you have a specific coordinate of interest, you can zoom. You can input your coordinates there and zoom to a location. You can also find specific addresses. Like I'm going to zoom to the Susquehanna River Basin Commission building. It auto completes. So if you know an address, you can put in your address, zoom to your address, and I'll maybe change the base map. And then you can return home. So that's an orientation of the map. I also wanted to point out that below the map is our disclaimer. So if you click on the disclaimer, that's how to find the disclaimer and read about that. All right. Now where we'll be doing a lot of the orientation today and the exercises will be on the toolbar. We'll be using the toolbar along the top of the map. Basically, on the left side, we're working with inundation. On the right side, we're working with damage. All right, so that's kind of a lay of the land on the tool. And then I want to get right into it here so we can all start working on it. So for this first exercise, the way I want to do it is I think I want to go through it step by step. And then I'd like each of you to go through it with me at the same time. And if that works well, then I think on the next exercise, I'll let you go independently. So I think this is a good time for everyone to get logged in and get to the screen. So I'll give you a minute to log in and get to the screen. And if anyone's having any trouble, just let me know. So I'm going to pause for about 10 or 20 seconds here and let you all get to the screen. Okay, is anyone having any trouble? Okay. All right, so let's bring up exercise 1. So this is the exercise document PDF, was in the meeting invite, and also sent by email. It looks like this. I'm going to go right through my exercise with you. All right, so in our first exercise, we're just going to do a basic damage calculation for an entire reach. Okay, so we're going to choose Bloomsburg. We'll start with Bloomsburg. So you want to come up here to the reach drop-down list, select an inundation reach. So we're going to pick Bloomsburg. And when you do that, you'll notice that it zooms to Bloomsburg and it shows the centroids and all the layers that will turn on. Once Bloomsburg is selected, that filters this list. So these are all the different flood stages in inundation levels for Bloomsburg. So we're going to pick 28.2. Now when that happens, you should see like a light transparent inundation layer that represents 28.2. Moving over to the next button, we have our flood actions. So Ben talked about the flood actions. This dialog has Bloomsburg, Danville, Sunbury, and Wilkes-Barre. It'll show your active reach, and it just shows a table of the various the impact from the increasing depth, and then the response. So that's a resource there that's right on the map. Continuing to move over, if you click the hydrograph button, it shows a live hydrograph. I can see Bloomsburg, Danville, Sunbury, and Wilkes-Barre. Since we chose Bloomsburg, that's the active tab. And this can be used to help you maybe determine, what stage you want to pick. So if we're in a flood situation or we want to project some sort of a flood, we can see what their hydrograph is displaying and then react to that by choosing the stage we want. So we've looked at the flood actions, we've looked at the hydrograph. At this point, we're going to calculate damage or estimate damage. So click the estimate damage button, and you'll notice that affected building centroids will turn red. So these are ones that are actually damaged at the inundation level. Let me zoom in here. Yeah, you may notice, and this is something Ben pointed out. You may notice that there are some buildings that are pretty close to the inundation. See if I can get lucky enough to actually find one that is inundated. Some of these are right along the edge. You'll notice they're not damaged. The red building centroids represent structures that are damaged at 28.2. So at this point, let's zoom in. You can zoom into any centroid you want and just click on it. At the top of the map pop-up is some general information about the centroid, the location information, owner, the cost, the content cost. And then at the bottom is more flood stage specific information. So here you can see as the depth increases, so does the damage. And we have that calculated for every point.
Are you looking for comments as we're moving along here, Chuck, or do you want me to hold my questions till the end?
Well, how about if we hold them until after the exercise is done, and then we can have a period of time where we can talk then.
Okay, that's fine, no problem.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we've zoomed in the Blooms. We've set Bloomsburg as the inundation reach. We've set 28.2 as the depth, and we've clicked the estimate damage button. So if we want to view the damage for all structures in the Bloomsburg reach, click the open damage table button, and at the bottom of the map, we have a table, and the table has a record for each damaged structure. If you look at the bottom, you can see there are 68 damaged structures. The fields on the left side are general information about the structure. The fields on the right side are more related to the damage. We have building damage, content damage, and then the total. And then the footers along the bottom give us the damage overall for all 68 combined. One other thing I want to point out about this table is that you can page through the records, or if you prefer, you can choose to show up to 100 in the table. View them all. You can sort as well if it helps to sort, to be able to find a specific, an owner's name. Or if you want to be able to sort, find the one that's the most damaged, you can do that. So these are all the table functionality. Let me see. So we've reviewed the damage in the table. At this point, did anyone have trouble getting these numbers? Has everyone been able to get to this step? Okay, sounds good. So that takes us through the first exercise. We're going to click the reset button, and you notice that'll restore the map to the original extent and clear out all the selections. So that's the end of our first exercise. I guess I'll take the questioner suggestion now before we continue.
The only suggestion I had, and it's a minor one, and I think this is something that may be important as we open this tool to a wider audience, is when you click on the building centroids, it lists the flood stage and elevation, 466.4, 468.0. You may want to consider maybe putting an extra column in there that lists like the river flood stage, like 17 feet, 18 feet, 19 feet, that kind of thing, because the average user in our area is going to look at the hydrograph and come up with, okay, 19 feet is equal to, whatever. Like they know flood stages in feet, they don't know elevation. So that may help the audience out a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just taking notes while you're talking there. All right, so I've got that in. Save that as a comment. Thank you.
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah.
Just before we move on, I just want to, and maybe this is just in my own mind and everybody's okay with this, but I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with the reach names and that they are so while the reach is named, or while the reach is named Bloomsburg, that is, and I'm going to just say roughly a 25-mile stretch of the river, and it's relative to the Susquehanna River Bloomsburg gauge. And it's amazing how every time you interact with the tool, I can always find something else. And I thought, I just want to make sure that's not causing anybody confusion, that if you're in West Pittston, you would be looking at the Wilkes-Barre gauge, you would be looking at the Wilkes-Barre reach, because it does cover, upstream and downstream. It's really the gauge, the river gauge that we're looking at, the forecast point that we're selecting there. So that's why it's not Wilkes-Barre specific. It's the area above and below Wilkes-Barre that the gauge is that the gauge is providing information for. So hopefully I didn't confuse, and I'm just trying to make sure everybody's comfortable with finding where they are in the overall study reach and how they zero in on that. The names Wilkes-Barre, Bloomsburg, Sunbury, and Danville are all relative to the river gauge and not the specific town. So that it defines a reach, a length of the river associated with that gauge. So thanks. And good comment, Eric. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, so as I said, we're going to do an exercise, and then I'll go into some parts of the tool in a little bit more detail, and then I'll turn it back over. And it seems like that first exercise, no one had any trouble. So maybe on the next one, I'll just give you a few minutes, and I'll let you do it on your own, and then we'll recap at the end. All right, so let me go into the toolbar in a little bit more detail. You already worked the toolbar in the first exercise. But let's just go through it one more time. As Ben just talked to, discussed, there are 4 reaches in the select list here. These really drive what happens further down in the other tools. So everything begins with selecting a reach. So if you select Wilkes-Barre, it brings you into Wilkes-Barre, for example. That drives the flood stages that are available. So when you change the reach, the flood stages change based on what's available there. So so it populates your select list of your flood stages, and when you choose a flood stage, that'll show an inundation layer. Moving across here, the flood actions are also driven by whatever reach you selected. So these are tabs. They're all available, but the active one is driven by whatever reach you've chosen. And the same for the hydrograph. Moving further over here, we have an admin boundary filter. So let me just kind of reset the map. Looks like mine's running a little bit slow. Okay, let me refresh this. Yeah, let me see. All right. So to zoom to an administrative boundary, let's just use Wilkes-Barre for an example. You're going to select Wilkes-Barre. It looks like we have a little bit of a delay happening. Okay, there it just popped in. And let's just say we wanted to go to a municipality in Wilkes-Barre. So when you select a reach, it'll populate the counties. This only has Luzerne County. Other reaches might have multiple counties. And you can either zoom to a county or you can zoom to a township. So this will bring you right into the township. Now, the reason why this might be useful would be that, let's just say you want to calculate damages for Exeter Township. That's how this kind of comes into play. Maybe you don't want to calculate damages for an entire reach that's 30 some miles long. You just have a specific interest by a township. Let that populate. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. These services are heavy. They have a lot of centroids. The inundation layers have a lot of detail. So sometimes you just have to give it a little bit of time and let the server do the work. There, it just came in, but you probably did notice that there's a little bit of a delay there. So I've selected Exeter Township along the Wilkes-Barre reach. And you see I only have one. That probably wasn't the best example for me to use. I just picked one. But that way it kind of constrained the damage to just that township. Let me see. Let's come down the river. Let me reset. Let's go down to let's go to the Danville reach, and I'll show you the manual selection. So we just covered the administrative, which is to go to a county or municipality. And then let's go down to Danville. Let's do a major flood. We'll go to 31.5. Now I'm going to show you how to do a manual selection. So maybe a manual selection is like an area between two streets, or maybe you want to, you just have an area. It doesn't fit a township. It doesn't fit any kind of admin boundaries. It's just your own custom way of selecting an area to see the damage. So to do a manual selection, you click the manual selection button. You notice the mouse will turn into a crosshair. And let's just say I want to get everything on the western, kind of the northwestern side of the river here at the major flood. And you can make as many centroids as you want. You just single click, move your mouse like that. And when you're done, you double click, and that completes your drawing. So this is a way to calculate for just one small area. So here I'm going to estimate the damage. And this is an example that I was trying to find earlier. So you can see some structures within the inundation polygon that aren't damaged. That's probably because they're elevated, or it's because the level just isn't reaching the first floor. Anyway, I delineated a custom polygon, click the estimate damage, and then I can open the damage table and review my damage and see that 17 structures were damaged, and see the totals. The other button up here, if you clear the graphics, the thing about clearing the graphics that's different than resetting the graphics are it'll clear the shape that you've drawn, it'll clear the damage polygons, but it will not clear the reach or the inundation. So let's say I drew my shape and I wasn't really happy with it. I could clear it. I could come in here and I could say, well, I really just wanted this area, and I could fine tune it and run it again without having to zoom in and set the inundation all over again. So that's kind of a convenient button. And the reset is really when you're done, you want to clear it all and you can start over again. All right, so that's kind of an orientation to all these buttons along the top toolbar. I think at this point, I will give you a few minutes to walk through exercise 2, and I'll check back in a couple minutes. This one's going to be estimating flood damages by a municipality. So I'll give you a few minutes.
grab this to sign in?
It may prompt you. Yeah, I guess I talked for a little while. It may have timed out, so you may need to log in again.
Log in at.
Okay, how's everyone doing? It's been a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions at this point? And was everybody able to get through the second exercise?
Maybe folks could give us a thumbs up under the reactions or something in chat, like, yes, it's working, or you're having trouble. Just to make sure everybody's not having any difficulties. The reactions are a
Don't
little...
be shy if you are having issues. Don't hesitate to chime in. We are noticing a little bit of lagging in the tool, and likely because we have a number of people hitting it, but we're going to be certainly be evaluating that too. And a couple thumbs up, so doing all right.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll move on to some description of the layers in the tool. And again, if you do have any technical issues or questions, chime in, give a thumbs up, or put a comment in the chat. I see a comment there about somebody was good to go. So, all right, I'm going to reset my view. And in this section, before our next exercise, I just wanted to discuss some of the layers a little bit better. So we've already covered our initial extent. We've talked about that. We've talked about the four reaches. We got Wilkes-Barre, Bloomsburg, Danville, and Sunbury. And then the next big part of our tool are the centroids. So let's talk about the centroids a little bit. This is where we're seeing a little bit of a lag. So centroids, you may notice that there are some that are yellow and some that are orange. I think Ben covered this in his introduction. I'm going to change my base map so it's a little bit easier to see the orange from the yellow. Basically, any centroid that's yellow can be damaged by the highest level of flooding that's in the tool. And any centroid that's orange is above the highest level of damage and will not be damaged. So it's kind of interesting, you know, even though this one's between a couple of yellows, it's still based on the calculations, this one would not be damaged. These are also scale dependent. So as you zoom out, you'll notice that they disappear. You may have times when you need to zoom in to see them, especially with the Wilkes-Barre reach, because that's a long reach. And when you select Wilkes-Barre, the centroids aren't displayed, and that's basically because there's so many features that it gets to be a lot for the website to handle. So we're trying to make some decisions about performance. So that's a performance decision to have them scale dependent. You'll also notice that the reaches are divided in the legend. So when you see points here, and we're in Sunbury, this is not the same layer that's up in Wilkes-Barre or Danville. So they're divided so that we can run calculations against the different inundation levels. These have two, we talked earlier, these have two kinds of data. The first is general attribute data. The second is more damage and depth sort of data. So the idea here is that as you scroll down, the water gets deeper and deeper until there begins to be damage. The other layer we see here are these red linear features. Those are flood risk management structures. So these are levees, flood walls, or closures. I think in the introduction it was also discussed. Let me see if I click on this, it'll identify it and it'll say that it's documented. So if you have a building behind a documented structure, damage won't be shown unless the water overtops that structure. If this were an undocumented structure, that wouldn't be the case, and damage would be shown either way. So we have a fair number of structures. This is down here in Sunbury. Go up to Bloomsburg. See more structures up here. So those are worked into the tool. Finally, the other thing I want to talk about, the last layer, is the flood action locations. So these, now let me kind of change well, it's fine. Flood actions are basically, they represent areas where actions need to be taken as the inundation changes. So these are color coded to match the flood stage. So they should match here. So as you go through action stage, minor stage, moderate, major, they're color coded to match those, and they respond, but only at the overall level as you change flood stage. All right, so I think I talked enough there. I'm going to let you go on exercise number 3. So exercise number 3, this will be a custom, drawing a custom polygon to delineate custom damage. I'm going to zoom my map into the area that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to be looking, this is real close to Sunbury. Let me turn on go back to my imagery base map. Zoom in to Sunbury. I'm going to go across the bridge, and this is the area where we'll be working. So I will give you a few minutes to go through exercise number 3. If you're having any trouble, if you're experiencing any slowness, any errors, please let us know, and that'll be good feedback for us. So I'll give you the time now. Thank you. Okay, how's everybody doing? Were you able to get through that exercise? Can we see some thumbs up or any kind of comments in the chat window, please? Okay. All right, so that was our exercise on drawing a manual area. Just say one more short thing before we wrap up and do our final exercise. The last thing to cover on the map is the response actions, and we've already talked about these a good bit, but the flood actions are based on whatever layer is chosen. So we have a table kind of side to this, and then we also have let me go into Wilkes-Barre. We also have flood actions on the map. So these flood actions, you'll see now that they're all hollow. And let me turn off let me turn off the building centroids just to they don't clutter it up. So flood actions are when there's no inundation shown, they come through as hollow, but then you'll notice as you, well, let me bring over the legend. Look, see on the legend, they're symbolized by the flood stage. So yellow is action, orange is minor, red is moderate, and purple is major. So if I do just action stage, you'll notice that the symbology in the legend changes. So this is action stage and minor. Looks like we're having some trouble with the tool here. Let me see if I just refresh my browser. I'll go back into Wilkes-Barre. I'm going to turn off the centroids. And let's go to 24. So our layer is responding. The map is having some challenges here today.
Hey Chuck, this is Stacy. Yeah, on my right side, it's not showing those the circles with the minor, moderate, so forth. Do I have to click on something, or maybe it's still
In your
coming
legend?
Drop down at the right. There's the little square to the right of the. Yeah.
yeah, right there is
Yeah.
where mine's not showing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm experiencing some problems here that I don't normally experience. And I don't know if that's
Oh, okay,
related.
mine just came in. I think mine was just a lag. Okay, it's showing.
Okay.
Once they pop up on the map, it showed. So there's just a lag. Got it.
Yeah. So is on my screen, you may see that it's not working. Is it working for other people in the group? I guess, how about if we go through exercise 4, and I'd like to know if this is working for other people, or if for some reason I'm experiencing the lag and I'm just the unlucky one. So at this point, I think I'll let everyone just start with exercise 4, and maybe we'll have this as a learning experience, but this is just working with response actions. So I'll give everyone a couple minutes on this, and then that'll wrap up the exercises, and we'll be able to move on to the next part. So let's just go ahead with exercise 4. Okay, so you can see that my layer is loaded in here at 18. See how it happens if I change to 31. Now it's working much better. It looks like we had some kind of a temporary lag. I don't know if our server was struggling. Has anyone else had a similar experience where it's hanging, or has it worked well for anybody?
It's working well here. I don't
Okay.
know. I was
Okay.
actually intentionally staying out of it, so
Okay.
staying out of the tool, but I logged back in and it seemed to log in fine and work fine.
Okay. I don't know if it's possible that this was just my local connection, or whether everybody was experiencing the same thing. I'd be interested to know. That would be good. That would be good feedback. Okay. Well, despite some of the technical problems, at least that I was seeing, I hope that these exercises helped. I hope they were a good starter to see what the tool should be able to do. If you have any questions, you all have my email, so please feel to check with me. Let me know if you have any questions, or if you're having any kind of lag in the performance or anything like that, and I'll be around. So, all right, at this point, I think I'll turn it back over. That kind of completes my part of the presentation. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. So this is the point where we have some time blocked for Q&A, and would welcome any kind of discussion around your experience today with the tool, your thoughts about the tool in general, good, bad, and different. We'd really like to hear it. I think I will say that what I said earlier. This is version 1.0. This is we've done some limited testing internally with having a number of people on the tool. This is probably the most people we've had interacting with the tool at one time. Obviously, this is an event driven tool, so it's when it's go time, people are going to be hitting it, and we're going to need it to be there. So we're going to have to make sure that that we get that worked out. And I would also emphasize, we've called it, and it is a tool. It's one tool for our toolbox. We're hoping it provides some value. It aggregates some information in terms of mapping and impacts that's out there, but also provides that damage assessment capability. What's on the screen now is a first cut. We think we can refine it. The other thing I'll say is that it is right now only relevant to Susquehanna River flooding. Any flooding you see right now in the tool in the tributaries is only backwater from a particular stage along the Susquehanna. That's something we'd like to address moving forward too. Obviously, in this reach, there's a lot of tributaries, sizable tributaries coming in. Fishing Creek and Bloomsburg comes to mind, and so we're not displaying anything right now that's specific to Fishing Creek. If you see flooding on Fishing Creek, it's backwater from the Susquehanna. So those are some of the limitations, but we do have to start somewhere, and I think we have a good start here. We've pretty much stood up in a web-based environment the old tool, if you will, the GIS-based tool that was developed in 2001. But we see a ton of opportunity to move forward and build this out, and with the group we have gathered here today, and in terms of the counties that we're working with in this phase, we're to some extent going to lean on you to help guide us and let us know any thoughts you have, and what we can do better here. So I don't know if anybody has anything to chime in on, to offer. Again, good, bad, and different. If you're seeing something you don't like, let us know. We're tough skins. We can get it. I would also, before I stop there, would like to recognize Jeff Zimmerman. Chuck has done a great job on the web development side. Jeff is our GIS analyst and has done a ton of work in incorporating the data that we have, and so appreciate his work as well as the work of the Philadelphia Core District. They did all of the fast runs, so just want to recognize them. And I'll stop there.
I'm sure you guys are in the loop, Ben, and I see Laura's on the call too. We're doing a comprehensive study of the Fishing Creek watershed here in Columbia County, and more specifically down in the west end of town with Borton Lawson. And we'll make sure. I'm pretty sure Brazina said you guys were tied in on sharing of that information on as part of their study. But if for whatever reason you run into any issues with that, please let me know, and we'll make sure that you get that. And I'm sure that's going to help with your modeling down there on that, the way that the Fishing Creek interacts with the river's pretty complex down there. So, we'll make sure that you guys get the information.
Yeah, thanks for that, Eric. We've been in touch with Jim and Borton Lawson on that front. And so, yeah, we're hoping to get some data out of that we could incorporate in the tool.
So I would definitely want to make sure, this is Stacy, that folks were able to use the tool. I see Jeff Lewis that you had to log back in and it was lagging a bit, but were you able to actually do the exercises and use the tool? Did it just take a while? Yes, okay, good. I mean, obviously we want to make sure that the tool functions when we need it to. We also have this exercise coming up in November where we're probably going to have 50 people or so on it rather than just 15 like today. So I'm curious too if people with the lagging problems with it, because you're on Wi-Fi. I know we're going to encourage folks to be wired. I don't know if that would help. But is there anybody else, I guess, on the call that was not able to work through the exercises for any reason?
I will also throw out that Jeff, Chuck, and I are all remote today. I guess one, because of COVID, but two, because we were informed they were having a fire drill at the building during this presentation. And so I don't know if that took our servers out too. I don't know, but just a thought.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that we're going, good to go going forward. So, and let me just ask, were those exercises helpful? Because obviously we're going to do this again in October. Did this help really show you how to use the tool? Any feedback there? Because we can always mix things up in October if we need to. Okay, thumbs up. Yeah, okay, great. Oh, excellent. Now for using the thumbs, okay, that's great. No, I think Chuck did a nice job putting those exercises together. Thank you. That was my first time actually going through it, so it was helpful to me. All right, good deal.
And I think, Stacy, the last thing we really have to talk about is the November exercise. I assume everybody here has already been invited to the exercise on November 9th. We were recently made aware of a conflict with Eastern Area Training, PEMA Eastern Area Training for that day. And actually, Stacy's working with Tom Hughes and PEMA to see if we can possibly move the Eastern Area Training and hold our date for November 9th. But we are planning the better part of a day to get together in an exercise. We will have an event scenario developed along the Susquehanna. I don't want to give you too much of a preview of that event, but it will be catastrophic. I can tell you that. But it'll give us a chance to get together and step through some of these things in the tool and use it in more of an event-based arena, and hopefully, hopefully it'll sort of reinforce where and when you can, pull this particular tool out of the toolbox. So that's scheduled for November 9th. If you are here today and have not received that invitation, please reach out to, I guess, you, Stacy, and make Stacy aware of that, and then
Or me
we'll
or
get,
Laura. Yeah, whichever. They probably have
but right
Laura's
now
email
we're
address better than mine.
hopefully, we're hopefully holding the date of November 9th. But if in fact we can't change the FEMA training for Eastern area, which obviously impacts, I think, our entire study area, the entire reach, then we'll have to adjust our date. But for now, we're moving forward, hoping November 9th will work out and that training will be able to be moved. So.
And Ben, let me just add, so yeah, I mean, we're going to be going through the tool and actively using it that day. But really, it's also to look at to test your emergency action plan, your EAP. So take that out, dust it off if you haven't used it in a while. Of course, we've had a few events, maybe you have pulled it out, but you just want to make sure that you've got that ready to go for the exercise. That and this tool will really be tested. Okay, that's all I have, Ben.
Yeah, I think that's, unless there's anything else from the group, any way of discussion or questions, we'd be happy to take them now. But otherwise, I think we've gotten through what we wanted to get through today, and are ready to turn you all loose to the rest of your day. And thank you again for being here and participating and providing the feedback that you have. It's all very helpful to us. So thank you. Anything else? Going once, twice. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to being in touch here in the near future. Thanks all.
All right, thank you.
See you all. Stacy, do you want to debrief on that at some